Good morning, everyone. It's Tuesday. I think it's Tuesday. It's April 7th. Um, we are getting ready for our session to meet the press. I'm continuing um, we'll call it the theme of how to reach and how to pitch to your local media. Um, we had Jen Lee talking about, again, how to pitch the media. There's a previous video that you guys can find. But today, we have a special guest. We have a journalist that mostly reports about travel. Good morning, Cheryl.
Good morning, Roy. How are you?
Good. I wanted to find out about what a travel journalist does, and how did you get into the industry? Could you introduce yourself and what it is that you do?
Sure. I'm Cheryl Rosen. I was the editor in chief of Travel Market Report for about 5 years. I'd say until about 2 years ago. And then uh, I guess I was doing all this writing about travel, but I was so busy being the editor that I never got to go on any trips. So I sort of semi retired and became a freelancer, which is a lot like an independent contractor. So I wrote stories, but sort of whenever I wanted to, and I did a lot of traveling, which was a wonderful thing. And then when I first left Travel Market Report, I had an exclusive non-compete with them. But now that's ended. So now mostly I've been writing really for Travel Agent and Luxury Travel Advisor magazines. They're both owned by the same company. They're QuestX publications. I started many years ago. I used to be executive editor of Business Travel News, maybe 30 years ago, and then I left there and I went into IT and financial publications. And then they call about when they launched Travel Market Report. They sort of revamped Travel Market Report maybe 7 years ago, and it's right near my house on Long Island. So my old friends who remembered me from Business Travel News days called me up and said, "You want to be editor of a travel magazine again?" I was like, "Yes." So now I'm back in the travel industry.
What do you think? Is this a good place to be at?
It is just when I started at Business Travel News, I really did it. I think a lot like travel agents. I did it because I love to travel and I wanted to be in the industry, really, so that when I retired, I would have friends in the industry and I could travel cheap. So it worked out great. It worked out great. I'm so happy to be back. Unfortunately, of course, we're not traveling right now, but hopefully it'll be back soon, right?
We're not talking about we're not traveling, but we are certainly talking about travel. Is there
That's
anything
true.
in particular right now that you're working on? You see the demand for?
Ugh. Well, nowadays all the stories are all about Corona, of course, and there's for travel agents. I think the stories are all about sort of financial aid, as they are. Like I said, I'm a freelancer, so that's a lot like being. It's pretty much exactly the same thing as being an independent contractor. I don't know about you guys. I'm applying for unemployment. I'm applying for a small business loan. And mostly those are the kind of stories I've been covering. I also have a Facebook page for travel agents. I hope you guys are all on it. Um, so mostly I've been writing about advice for how to, always I would say I write about the business of being a travel agent. Um, I think the business right now is how to stay in business for the next month, the next 3 months, the next 6 months, the next 12 months. So
We've
that's
we've been also in the group have been talking a lot about the current situation, what travel agents can do and should do in terms of unemployment, all the PPP, all the programs that are out there. But we're also now trying to focus on educating ourselves and getting, I guess, support for the next phase because we know people will travel again. The question is when and when they will actually be ready to book.
right.
Um, and right now, again, for you, it seems, do you hear anything in the market when you're talking with suppliers, with people?
I think nobody really knows. I posted something the other day about they were saying maybe 9 months, but really I think nobody really knows what will be, but I would say it's a good time. I posted something about Dave Ramsey, who's a financial sort of guru a lot of people follow. Um, and he was saying you should have a plan. This I like this idea that you should have a plan for what you're going to do this month, assuming there will be no travel at all, pretty much. So people are still booking, I hear, and I would say part of what you could be doing is getting your name out there, maybe with your own local media. So I understand you've already done one on how to reach out to the local press. I would say this is a good time, maybe, to reach out to the local press, and ask them if they'd like to interview you. I know I heard someone at a ASTA meeting relatively recently. They had a speaker who, a TV reporter, and I'll tell you, me too. Like when I was editor of Travel Market Report, we did 7 stories a day. That's a lot of stories to find, So I'm a person, or the editors of all these papers, are looking for stories. Like their job is to find 7 stories a day in the travel industry. Um, so they're kind of looking for you. So they said call your local TV, especially if you're in a small town. Call the local TV station and ask them if they'd like a story, if they'd like to interview you on, you know, how to get a refund, how anything, anything really.
Okay. And yeah, we know that a lot of the airlines now are changing policies, trying to
Right.
maybe adjust to the DTO, the Department of Transportation, or maybe some are not. So it's a good thing. And we also posted a few ways here on our group how to get a refund or how to speak with the airline to actually convince them to follow their own
Right.
rules and the carriage contract. So it probably is a good idea to maybe reach the press and have them write an article or do a video and a piece about how to get a refund.
You
Um,
could think about the travel press too. I was thinking, even, like I said, there's Travel Market Report, Travel Weekly, Travel Agent, Luxury Travel Advisor, like all of them too. Are looking for stories. So if you're doing something, I always was surprised, sort of, and I started my Facebook page largely, as a way to find stories. Like it's not easy to find 7 stories a day. And I really wanted to do stories about travel agents, about the business of, like, not supplier stories, because you could read that in Travel Weekly, what American Airlines is doing. So when I was at Travel Market Report, I tried to make it, something really for travel agents. And the only way to do that is to talk to travel agents. So it's probably a lot like your site. There's a lot of talk. And from that, I get ideas for stories. And I would post, like I post, even now I do it. I say, I'm working on a story for Travel Agent Magazine about whatever, what do you guys think? And then for me, I can just cut and paste and my story's done. It's a wonderful thing. And I would say, even though that's a publication for travel agents, not for consumers, you say, well, that's not going to get me customers really, because my peers are reading that. But I know a lot of people. I did, especially if it's a profile story about you, which those come up too. If someone said something really interesting that they were doing really differently, like what I said, I'm doing a story on fees this year. You're charging higher fees than last year, whatever. And one person said, well, she's doing annual fees now. She started like an annual contract, $1,200 up front, like her doctor does, or a
mhm.
lawyer,
Like a
retainer.
retainer,
Yeah,
retainer for
an
my
annual
services.
retainer.
Okay.
So that was such an interesting idea. I think that, so then I posted, I'm doing a story on retainers. Anybody doing them? 3 people told me they're doing retainers. So I interviewed just those 3. And I assume if they were smart, and I think they're smart people if they're even thinking about doing retainers, I would assume they pass that story on to their customers. And that's a really good way, I think, to position yourself as an expert. Maybe not a retainer story, but come to think of it, but a story that's not about fees, in which you're quoted, you could share with your customers and put it up on your Facebook page, and you're being quoted in a publication for travel agents, I think really positions you as an expert and so I think it's good for everybody. So look at those Facebook pages. Go on Travel Weekly. I don't think anyone else does that, and it always
Oh, I think we lost Cheryl for a second. So I'm going to wait until she connects back again. But I have to totally agree. I've been quoted a few times in the press and the media, and then you can clearly use it as an advantage. I think we have Cheryl back.
it
Yeah,
keeps kicking me off.
oh, you're back. Now you're
I'm
back.
back.
Okay.
It kicks me off every once in a while, but I'll
I don't
just
know why
log
would
back in.
I think everyone is streaming, everyone is using Facebook, everyone is using all these software, so it's just. But thank you for coming back so quickly.
You're welcome.
So I was kind of reinforcing and saying, yes, the few times that I was quoted, I was able to use it. People see it. People see that you were quoted. They use your name. They use your travel agency. It does give you lots of credibility with your clients and your peers. So tell me, how do you have any tips for us? I know you said look on your group and look on your Facebook group that I will add it later so people can join. How do I get quoted? Is there any, like, do I have to, is there a magic word to get quoted?
Well, one thing I will say is, especially when I say I'm working on a story, then it amazes me how many people like really don't pay attention. Like, try to put yourself in the customer's position. Me being the customer here, you're selling me something. You're selling me yourself. Um, so people will just say, yeah, I think that's a great idea. Well, I'm not going to say Roy Gall said, yeah, I think that's a great idea, like, or yeah, I do that all the time. Well, I'm not going to put that in quotes in a story in luxury travel advice. So think of it, and I don't mean to make it stilted. Like, if it sounds, people like read it over and edit it, and then it just sounds like really poor. It's fine to speak just in real words, like real people talk, but make it like a full sentence, or think of it, this is going to be in a newspaper. So put it in a sentence that I can quote. And also look at what people have said before. Like, often I'll say I'm doing this story, I'll get 25 replies maybe. And I could use maybe 8 or 10 of them. I try to get a lot of people into the story. If you post something, a part of me wants very much to include you in my story. So think of it that way. But I'm not going to quote 10 people saying the exact same thing. And so many people do that. So if you're not first, read the ones above you and make sure nobody has said exactly what you're saying. You could say it anyway. I mean, it's fine to just talk to me, but I'm not going to quote the same thing from 4 different people. So look to see what other people have said and think of whether you could say something different, especially if it's something smarter, more detailed. You'd be surprised how many people just, say, yeah, that's a great, I think that's a great, what do you think of, American Airline or whatever, I can't, whatever, AMA Waterways policy on refunds. What do you
Mhm.
guys think? I think it's great. Well, I'm, I'm not going to quote you saying that. But if you say, I think it's great because for travel agents, it helps keep me in business, whatever. That's what we're looking. So say something really smart. I'm trying very hard to quote you saying something useful to your peers. And if you do, I'll quote you. Yeah, that's all there is to it. It's not, I don't quote my friends. I don't quote. And I do try to quote someone who I've never quoted before. I like, if you've never posted anything on the site and you say something really smart, you have a really good chance that I'm going to quote you.
Okay.
If you include your agency name and your city, I'll include it. And if in the beginning at Travel Market Report, I had a rule that we always used your company name and your city. Always. But now I'm a freelancer, and that's annoying. If I'm quoting 10 people, nobody ever gives me that information. I would have to go to Facebook, paste in your name, look it up 10 times, and that's time consuming and annoying, really. So I just don't do it anymore, usually, unless if it's relevant, sort of where you're located, I might. But otherwise, I usually don't bother to look it up. So, but I'm
If
happy
you
to
have
do it.
something, if you have something smart to say that no one has said before, when you make the comment, just make sure that you also include your agency name and your city or state or both.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Um, we where there's a question about Becky's asking what's the group site to visit Cheryl. So I'll send out the, but what's
I
the
can.
name of the group?
So I shouted at Cheryl Rosen's group for travel professionals.
Okay. Sounds simple.
Yeah,
I'll post the link to the group later if people want to join in. I think I'm a member of the group as well.
I think you
I
are.
I see I see, sometimes, the post, I see your post about trying to get discussions, people to talk about something in the related to the travel industry. Um, I guess to try and look for articles, ideas as to what to do, see if that interests people.
Right.
Um, so, in addition to just writing articles, you also cover like media events, right, or inaugurals.
Well, yeah, we get invited. That's the best part of the job, right? Like for travel aid, for travel, you get invited on fam trips. We get invited on press trips. So that's the best. So I used to get all these press trips, but I could never go because I was editing 7 stories a day when I was the editor. So now I get to go because I'm a free. And mostly they send me. You'd be surprised how many travel rep- reporters don't want. We get invited to so many things that it's kind of overwhelming. Like especially for the cruise people, I would say, because a lot of the cruises are a week. Like to be away for a week every once in a while is fun, but all the time it's not so much fun. And an amazing number, really, of travel reporters are divorced. I find, and they're on the road way too much. So, but my husband retired recently, so for us, it's just like the perfect job. The perfect job. A lot of times he comes along. Sometimes they won't let him come, but some if they let him come, then he comes. I have to pay for him, but he comes.
Any one in particular that you recently did that was
Oh, that I'm not. I did Dubai recently. That was a really interesting, and I was so excited about Expo 2020 coming up. Um, I was supposed to go back for a Dubai press trip. I think it was Abu Dhabi, actually, Abu Dhabi, and Expo 2020, which seemed like a wonderful opportunity for travel agent. I was thinking, what a perfect trip that would be. A couple days in Abu Dhabi, couple days in Dubai, a cruise, and then go to Expo 2020. But all of those now are on hold. But I'm glad I got the trip in, right? I just did an Israel trip. And what else did I do recently? And then I was supposed to do Viking right now. I was supposed to do it, be in New Orleans for a lot of times it's that they have press and travel agents at the same one. There's not that many, like they invite usually one person from each of the travel publications. So there's Travel Weekly, Travel Market Report, QuestX, Insider Travel Report. There's only like 4 or 5 publications for travel agents. So there's 4 or 5 of us who get invited to a lot of things along with the travel agents. So look for me if you ever see me.
Yeah, I see Patty's writing that Expo 2020. It certainly looked amazing. So
Right?
yeah, well, everything I guess we'll have to wait
Right?
for 2021. Um, we talked about again your target reader normally is it's travel agents, it's travel agencies. Who's the
Well,
target reader?
Travel Market Report it was started by the Mazza family, and they own Travel Savers and Nest. So really, it started as sort of an internal publication for their members, I think. And then when they hired about 6 or 7 years ago, I think the channel was coming back. The travel agent channel was coming back, and I think it occurred to them that they could have a real publication and so they brought in a professional travel team. So they hired a me as the editor and salespeople, like a real team of, you know, um, and we launched Travel Market Report as an industry publication. Um, so that and their audience, I would say, is mostly my audience. When I was there, I saw as mostly smaller agencies, independent contractors, working from home. And they weren't that interested really in in corporate or in big agencies so much. They really focused on smaller agents and independent contractors. Travel agent and especially luxury travel advisor are more focused. They're also really interested in small agents and independent contractors. Like, you're such a huge part of the distribution channel now, that they are interested in you. And it's a hard market to reach for advertisers. So that's good for the travel press. But they are also interested in the bigger agencies and a little bit of corporate, you know.
So it's a hard market because we're all spread out because everyone just
Yeah.
works from their home, so it's not
Yes,
centralized.
exactly. And you're working from home, so it's hard to reach you with an ad, for advertisers. And let's say Travel Weekly, that doesn't really talk to, well, they do a little more now. Everyone is realizing what an important channel it was. Also, it's really hard to get a count. Maybe now, as people, it's terrible to say, but as you apply for unemployment as independent contractors, maybe we'll get a better feel for how many independent contractors are out there. So it's hard to quantify how big that audience is. um, but
Right. I mean, maybe now a lot more agents are maybe joining ASTA or something, so they
yeah, I think
get
so.
some information and more numbers.
Yeah.
Um,
That's one thing about us. I will put in. I know people used to, sort of make fun, especially the independent contractor, said there was no point in them joining ASTA, and I could even sort of sympathize with that. It's like $199. I think it's a lot of money. But now you see how important it is to have a trade association like that, and I would say it will help if they could get a better count of how many independent contractors are out there, for you to have more of a voice. So you might want to join Asta. They're having a $50 off sale.
yeah, most hosts are now also, getting a few waivers and all. So it's good to have someone that would raise the voice. I don't know what part they actually took with with the DOT, with everything, with getting the refunds, but they're working hard,
Yeah,
and even if they weren't the one who actually you know did it, the more people approach, the more people lobby for our industry. That's important.
that's
um,
true.
so if any one of our people online or people that are going to watch it later is thinking about getting into the travel journalist portion, is there any? How do they start? What do you have a recommendation?
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. I have to say, it's really hard to get in. It's one of those jobs everywhere I go. My daughter majored in TV production and even at the time, I was like, really, um, but that's really what she wanted to do, but she couldn't get a job. So, like, everywhere people say, oh, I could do that job. And you know what? The fact is, you probably could. Like, there's a lot of people who could write and a lot of people who know travel. So, every people, oh, I could do your job. And I'm thinking, yeah, you probably really could do my job, especially if you have a background in travel. If you're a travel agent, you could do my job. Um, the hard part is getting a job doing it. And that's true of a lot of professions, maybe not travel advisors. So I don't know if you can really get behind. I remember when I was young, I had a friend who only wanted to be a plumber. Who knows? An electrician. I was an electrician. He lived in Leicester, which is an apartment building for the Electric Union, mostly in New York, in Queens. So all his friends were in the Electric Union. He only wanted to get into the union, and he could not get in. Could not, and never did get in. So I mean, there's a lot of bloggers, and there's some bloggers who really have a following. Like, in the beginning, we used to make fun of them on press trip. Oh, she's just a blog. One time, I know my husband and I were sort of laughing about that. Everywhere we went, she had this big white hat. This girl, and everywhere we went, she was taking pictures of herself with this big white hat in front of the hotel. We did, like, I forget where we were. I think Dominican Republic or whatever, and we did, like, 6 hotels we went to. And she's taking picture everywhere we go. And she came up to me and said, I had a notebook, I'm taking notes. She said, oh, you take notes? It's like, Well, yes, I'm going to write a story about six hotels. So I do take notes, you know. So we're laughing. And then I look her up, and she has 1.5 million followers. I'm thinking, okay. uh,
Yeah, when you look at some of the bloggers or
right.
even the vloggers, with
Yep.
the video
Yep.
journalists,
Yep.
it looks, when you see them posing for their own pictures and videos, and they're literally sitting with a camera like this, it looks a bit weird, but you know what? Some things just work.
Hey,
And yeah, when you have an audience of over 1 million people in this industry, you are successful.
right.
So yeah,
I would say if you're young, though, I don't mean to say it can't be done, you know. And you know how I started at Business Travel News. Really, I was coming back to where I had I had kids, and my youngest was in third grade. I said, okay, I'm going back to work full time. I used to be a social worker, and that I was like, it's just too sad. It's just, it's a very sad job. I want a happy job. Yeah, I want to work in the travel industry, And we were travelers as kids. We traveled all the time. My mother was a college professor, so she had, they had these great, educational trips every summer. We used to go wherever. She dragged us every summer. So at 10 minutes from my house was CMP Publications. They did 10 IT publications, and then they did Business Travel News and Leisure Travel News. So I read an article in Working Woman magazine, how to get back in the workforce when you've been home with kids. And they said, find a company you want to work for and take anything to get in there. So I applied to Business Travel News, I think 12 times, and they would never give me an interview, even because I had no background as a journalist. And then every Sunday I would look in the paper. Every Sunday there were ads at CMP Publications for a secretary, and I said, "Okay, I'm doing it." So I took a job as a secretary. I started at Computer System News. I went to I went to Apple. I worked on, so it took me 5 years to get from being a secretary to starting as a junior editor at Business Travel News. And they told me when they hired, I made friends with everybody. Everybody in the company knew me. And in the end, I was the secretary to the president of the company. I said, he's the only one who's going to get me out of the secretarial track and into the travel reporting track. So I worked for him for like 2 years, and then they had layoffs. And he said, Cheryl, I'm really sorry. He had three secretaries. He said, I'm really sorry. It doesn't look good for me to have three secretaries when we're having layoffs. I guess that was 2008. The IT market was crashing. He said, find something else in the company. I'll get you the job. Yeah, I'll give you a job there. I said, I want to be that associate editor at Business Travel News. He said, sure. So I get there the first day. The editor says to me, hi, you're Cheryl. Hi. Um, so they gave me a story. I wrote this. I've always been a good writer, I have to say. I'm a really good writer. My mother was an English professor. So you have to be a good writer. It really helps. And so I worked my way, and they told me afterwards. They said, they just looked at each other and said, "Oh God, we have to hire the president's secretary to be."
Mhm.
Oh God, and they said, "Well, if she can't write, we'll just have her Xerox." And so then after that, every time, whatever at staff meetings, so that was like the big joke. If you don't write a good story, Cheryl, we're going to make you Xerox. So take what you can. If you're young and you really want to be a travel writer. Go for it. Take anything. Get in there. Make friends, do anything you can. Take any job they need and see if you could work your way into travel writing.
Yeah, we have Becky who's online. She says that she's doing a radio show once a month, talk tips, trips.
Cool.
She takes calls. Um, you should talk about your own agency or your own. Try to plug it in. No, it doesn't work, Cheryl.
You could plug it in at the end, but now like I've told a couple people who they send me things to put up to post to in my group. I have my own page, Cheryl Rosen page, Facebook page. You could just post anything, but the group is a closed group, and I get to approve what goes up. So people are always trying, and I say, you know what? I call them now, and I say, you don't want to be putting up now something advertising travel. Like, I don't really think you should be, people aren't ready for it. People aren't ready to travel. Don't be selling me stuff. And they're getting people, and I find it kind of annoying and off-putting a little bit. You could find a way perhaps to do it. But I think it's more, that's what they say, don't sell, make
I agree.
friends.
I mean,
You know what I mean?
if you provide
Exactly.
good service, good ideas, um, people will know how to reach you.
Exactly.
So if I totally agree. People, if you provide some sort of a service, even if you open up a Facebook group, you write something, you write an article, just mention who you are, and as Becky said, she gives the agency number at the end because they
Right.
need to know who's talking. As long as they can look you up later, yeah, you don't need to sell yourself the information, and what you are going to provide is should be enough.
Right. And
Well,
establish that relationship. That's what they say. First talk, just talk to me. You'll sell me later.
and I wrote something. It's kind of a joke, but the story that you said when you started from the beginning, I started watching with my boys Supergirl. Same thing. She
Oh
started.
yeah.
So Cheryl, maybe you know
How did she start? At a newspaper?
started as a secretary
Yeah.
for yep.
I think travel agents too. Have none of you done that? Like started sitting in an agency, whatever, just helping
I
out,
started,
being the
yeah,
reception anywhere.
I started working as a reception, like at front desk of a hotel that the hotel owner owned a travel agency. So I kind of rolled into it,
Right.
and it was literally from the because that was on the bottom floor, and then the agency was on the 10th floor. So literally went up to the top. But it
Right.
was, yeah, you got to start somewhere. A
I
different.
used to work at the Pineview Hotel in Fallsburg, New York, one summer, and my job was to do the newsletter. Part of my job, part of my job was the switchboard back in the day, and the other part was daily newsletter for guests. So I would say my first paid job writing travel was at the Pineview Hotel in Fallsburg, New York.
Perfect. So I wanted to summarize and of course to thank you for your time to talking to us and because our goal is to keep travel in the news, hopefully on a positive note, get our experts, and we have tons of experts on the page and people that have a lot of information and sometimes maybe they're afraid to talk out and but if you have a smart thing to say that people haven't said before, or you could say it better, you should go on Cheryl's group for travel agents, um, look for her questions, make sure that you answer, and also include your travel agency where you are located. Hopefully, she'll pick it up, and then plug it in, post the link. I think sometimes when you actually do the article, you might tag the agents to tell them that they were quoted.
I
Uh,
always do. Yes. If I quote
yeah,
you when I put the article up when it runs, and I say thanks to, and I shout out to all the everybody I quoted.
great.
I would
Uh,
say too, if you, especially business, if you're doing something different in your business, that's a really good story. You should reach out to the travel press and ask them if they'd be in, or just them send them an email. You could send it to the editor or whatever and
okay.
say, I have a really good story. I've tried this in my business at work. Wait, I'm doing whatever, parties in my house or working for the radio station, anything like that. Any.
I see Kim is saying that she uses a small local paper for a monthly ad. And this month it said something about would love to advertise for your next fabulous vacation. But in light of COVID-19, I would like to thank doctors and nurses and essential workers. So she's pretty much giving back. She's giving back her ad back to the community, and I think people will remember and will appreciate because again, if you promote cruises right now where people are dying, they might say, maybe it's not the right time, but
Right.
we always emphasize, um, show the world your services, what you bring to the table, not necessarily, how you helped your clients get back home, how you are helping your clients get the refund because they lost their jobs and the airline said no, or the supplier said no, and you fight for them. And hopefully when everything goes back, they'll use you. I've had a few posts that I've made that clients haven't used me, but they got stuck. They got stuck in Hawaii. They got stuck in Australia. They reached out. Of course, the first thing that I thought in my mind, like, you didn't book with me, that's your problem now. But I helped them, and then of course their comment was, "We'll book you. We'll always use you again. We shall see." But
Right.
it felt good. It felt good to help people, even if they won't book again. For me, it felt, like the
That's
good
a
thing to do.
story you could pitch to your local paper, how travel agents have stepped up and saved people who were not their customers. It's kind of a good story,
Okay, something to
right?
think about. And
Especially if you're in a small town.
okay. So I don't see that we have any more questions. If there are, again, I'm going to post the name of the group. Thank you again, Cheryl, for your time. Hope
Thanks
to
for
see.
inviting me, Lori. This was fun. It was a lot of. It's so nice to see your face, right?
Yeah, we've been talking. We've been talking on Facebook. We've been chatting. It's yeah, and you see a lot of people. You see just the profile pictures, and later when you actually meet, it's like, do I know you, or do I think I
Right.
know you?
It is
Um,
amazing with Facebook. I don't know if you guys see it, but I definitely see. Like, I'll go to a like an ensemble conference or something like that, and so many people like know me. It's like really, and they're just my Facebook friends. It's nice.
yeah. So again, thank you very much for your time, and hopefully we'll meet at a good trade media slash travel agency event.
I
Uh,
hope so, Roy.
Hopefully soon.
Hopefully soon.
Thank you again. Have a wonderful week and stay safe.
You too. Wash your
Bye.
hands. Bye.